Now, if you're an adult, total beginner, totally new to calisthenics and bodyweight strength, this program is going to be for you. I'm going to take you through all the basic foundational movements that I think you should have under your belt before you start working on some more of the advanced movements. So we're going to go through the warm-up, we're going to go through push-ups, rows, squats, step-ups, deadlifts, hang, inverted hang, balance, a crow position, handstand, and hollow body hold. I will show progressions as we go and give you an idea of sets and reps. I will be uploading the full program to my app, so if you're interested in that, link will be down in the description. Now, if you are a YouTube member or you have the app already, you can download the Discord. In the Discord now, you can ask questions, send videos, and join the community of other users. Now, for the upper back thoracic area, I highly recommend a foam roller. If you're very unconditioned, I'd use one of the longer foam rollers and do a spinal drape, so laying long ways from butt all the way up to the head. And then the slightly harder variation is to use one of these shorter rollers and go onto the upper back and just roll over that area. So don't be too aggressive, just give it a little bit of time, see how it feels, and if it feels okay, you can start to make it harder by opening the body up, by straightening the arms and trying to extend more over the roller. Now we can roll and we can go through extensions. Both are very good. Just try and get the movement from where the roller is, not from the neck too much or not from the low back too much. Keep this warm up as simple as possible. So for the wrists, spread the fingers, shoulders on top of the hands. Do some circles with the arms straight. Slowly increase the load through the hands. If it's very hard, just keep the weight back in the legs a little bit more. If it's easier, go for a bigger range of motion. Peel the hands up in different directions, through the fingers, through the knuckles, through the palms, and just get the body nice and happy to start to load more through the hands, through the upper body. This is something that's very individual, the same as all these stretches will be. If you're tighter, you need to work more in those areas, but give your body time to open up. If you're more flexible, you won't need to spend as much time in the flexibility. But bear in mind, we want to try and increase the strength through that range of motion. So we want to get some mobility, not just flexibility. Into the quad, hip flexor stretch. So just a normal lunge position, trying to open up as much as you can through the front here. Go into a posterior tilt. So posterior is tucking the tail under and making sure this is open, as opposed to being archy through the low back. We want to really use the abs and the glutes to create that straight position between the torso and the leg. And then we can increase the stretch by coming forwards like this, and we can also increase the stretch in the quad by lifting the back foot up. You could put it on the wall on a step or hold onto it and then just open up again through the front there. And don't forget you have two legs to do the other side as well. Now for the hamstring, it's going to be a little bit individual depending on how flexible you are already. If you're super tight, you don't want to be winding the foot up too much and then put yourself into a really rounded back position. So make sure you can have more of a flat spine when you do this movement. So we could do something very easy, just locking the knee backwards and then walking the hands down, trying to keep the back flat. Or if you have more range, you could put your foot up onto something, lock the knee backwards nice and tall, keep that back flat, and then just lean forwards as far as you can, keeping the back flat. Make sure you're feeling it in the calf, in the hamstring, and your knee is not bending. Again, don't forget that other side. Now for the pigeon stretch, the most comfortable position for most people to get into it is going to be doing it elevated on a box, a chair, or the couch. So just try and get everything in 90 degrees and have the torso nice and upright, back flat again. You should be feeling this in the butt, top of the hamstring there. And if you can increase it, you can lean forwards into the position again with the flat back. Do both sides. And we should be ready to go. Now a good ballpark figure here is to go 30 to 60 seconds. But if you are tighter, you're going to need longer in positions or just visit the positions more often, which is the one I actually recommend more. And if you're naturally more flexible, you're going to need less time. Okay, then the first strength movement, the foundation of the pushing. So a strong position we want to have at the top of the push-up, come all the way down, the body stays as one piece. We touch very, very lightly, and then we return back to that start position. So that's the goal, but what's the things we need to focus on? So number one, we need to focus on having a strong position through that scapula. We don't want to be collapsed down like that. So making sure you can do those all-important scapular push-ups. So moving through the scapula in that position, bringing the shoulder blades together with straight arms, and then pushing out and round in the upper back. If that's too hard, do that to start with on the knees. Once we have some awareness and control there, we can add the push-up. Now, first of all, push-ups on the toes is going to be too hard for most people. And yes, we could do knee push-ups, keeping the knee to the shoulder as one segment. But if we have the option, I prefer to go toes to hands, because that's more like the real thing. So ideally, we want to raise the hands up. So now this is easier. So on an incline, it's easier to get the movement. If we can get all the way down, chest to touch the box, and then back up again without arching through the back, that's what we're aiming for. Now when I do the push-up, I'm externally rotating the hands. I'm bringing the arms into my side as I come down. So if I'm in that position, notice the fingers are pointed out, and then I'm going to bring the arms into the side, all the way down, and then back up again, still arms into the side. Try not to let the elbows go out to the side and wing up like this. As you can see, look at my shoulder position. We want to be in this externally rotated, stronger position. It's much better for push and a healthier shoulder. Now ideally whatever we're putting our hands on can be adjustable in height. This works really well because I can take the barbell up and down incrementally, exactly the same setup as the box, external rotation, arms into the side, chest to touch the bar, all the way back up to that position. If it's easy, I can just decrease the height. If it's too hard, I can just increase the height. Next, we have the opposite movement to the push-up, the row. Now the row is exactly the same. We can change the height. The higher the bar, the easier it is. Same type of movement, but in reverse. So chest to touch the bar, and then I come back down to that bottom position, I round the upper back, and then I retract the shoulder blades as I open up till my chest touches, back down again. If it's too hard, I raise the bar, exactly the same technique, chest touches, slowly back down. If it's too easy, I can decrease the height of the bar. Now, if you have the option of rings, they work really well for rows, so I can walk in to where's comfortable for me, I can round the upper back, I can bring the chest to the ring, and I can come back down again. If it's easy, I can walk forwards, or make the straps longer. If it's too hard, I can walk backwards and make the straps shorter. Same techniques as the push-ups. As I bring the hands closer, I open the chest up, the arms come into the side. So external rotation, not internal rotation. Next, let's look at the foundations of the leg work. So the squat, the step up, and the deadlift. When it comes to the squat, we want to be looking at two things. We want to be looking at that bottom position, so be able to hang out down here in the bottom of your squat position. Ideally, this should be comfortable and you can hang out there for time. However, most people will struggle with this position, especially bare feet. So using a slight heel lift or putting some shoes on that have a heel lift built in will make it much easier to sit in that position. So get comfortable down there, find a comfortable position for your feet. External rotation again makes the position easier, knees out to the side. We definitely don't want to have feet in, knees in, because that position is going to be really hard on the body and just makes the movement impossible. And then the reason I'm holding this step, this is going to be my target for the squat pattern. I'm just going to sit down, touch, come back up again. Now, if it's easy, I can make it harder by removing that completely or just changing the height to something lower. Ideally, I'll go down to my resting squat position and be able to stand back up again comfortably. A great way of working the squat is doing it facing the wall. This is going to keep your torso nice and upright. Because what will tend to happen when people struggle with the squat is they'll lean forwards like this. So we want more of an upright torso. So I come nice and close to the wall, put my hands against the wall. Now when I squat, it's stopping me leaning forward, especially if I have a cap on with a peak. That's going to make it even harder in that position to go down and back up again. If it's easy, I can go closer. If it's harder, I can use the heel lift, the step, or just back away from the wall. Now the initial goal with the lunge pattern is to be able to get off the floor. So if I can get off the floor in this standing position like this, functionally, I have a lunge pattern. We should be able to do that on both sides and make sure that the hip, leg, foot stays in line on its own train track. What we don't want to do is have a foot going in this way or the knee dropping in or something like that. So everything in line, be able to go up and down comfortably to the floor on both sides. We can progress that by going up onto a raised surface and go up and back down again. Again, making sure everything stays nice and square. Too hard, you can just do something on a lower height, so something like this step. Again, focus on that alignment. If you need to, you could hold a stick. And then we have the deadlift. So working the hamstrings and the glutes, the hip movement, leaning forwards, we should feel some tension in here. Should be able to pick something up all the way up to hip extension and then go back down again to the start position. When learning this, I'd use something like a kettlebell or ideally a barbell, making sure the weight is close to the body or close to the shins. So in between the feet, if you're using a kettlebell, the back is flat, the hips are quite high so you can feel some tension in the hamstrings and the glutes, and then make sure you get full hip extension at the top with the shoulders back and down, chest open, and then return back to that position. Notice the weight is back on top of the feet again, and the bar travels straight up and straight down. Progressions and regressions are easy. We just decrease the weight or increase the weight. Next, let's look at hanging. Now, I'd recommend that you do this as part of your warm-up unless it's super hard. If it's super hard, stick with that thoracic extension until you can at least hang for about 30 to 60 seconds with hands shoulder width apart, passively. So in that position. So that way it's going to open up the body from head to toe, lengthening through the upper back, shoulders, pecs, lats, and just everything to make this position much easier. It creates more space in the body. It's just an amazing exercise that everyone should be doing. Now the same as the push-up position with the scapula, we ideally should be able to go between an active position and a passive position, so be able to move up and down, and then progress to retracting and depressing the shoulder blades, so opening up in that position and coming back again. Now, if our setup allows it, I'd also be doing an inverted hang. So ideally on rings is the easiest way to do it. So in this position, if you have it, you could just step into the position and be upside down, spend some time here, start building conditioning in an inverted position, and then be able to exit back out again. If that's too hard to go in, you can go in this way. So hands round Turn the hands over, walk backwards, hips nice and high, and then just see if you can step one leg and two legs into the position. And just make sure that you can exit in this direction, but also exit in that direction. Next is a fun one, just make sure that you can balance. So you can balance on a rail, you could use a P-bar, and just make sure that you can balance, so be able to hold on position on one leg. You can move around, you can change feet, change direction, do circles, and just be able to play around on a balance beam is going to be really good for us. And the cool things with things like this, they don't need to be part of your routine. You could just have them around the house and just play on them every day. Now when it comes to handstands and arm balances, probably the easiest entry to it, and a great one that can be progressed bit by bit, is the crow or frog position. So I'm just going to put my elbows inside my knees, so just like that. And then I'm going to externally rotate, place the hands down on the floor, and I'm going to put some weight into the hands, into the shoulders, the upper back. I've still got my toes on the floor, and then all I'm going to do is take my weight forwards and down a little bit. So notice head and shoulders going closer to the floor. Now my toes are getting lighter, and I might be able to step both feet up in the air, hold there for time, and then come back out with control. I'd much rather you do that than trying to jump into the position. Being able to float or step into it is going to be much better for you. If you've got more room to play with, you can try and take head down towards the floor and back up again, but that's quite progressed. But just building time here, feeling the balance, getting lots of weight in those arms and trying to decrease the weight out of the legs as much as possible is going to carry over to all the other arm balances and handstands. Now, if your goal is a handstand, I'll be working things like this. So placing the hands down on the floor, pretty much the same setup as we had for the crow, but then just stepping on the sofa, stepping up to a wall like this, just making sure you've got lots of weight in the arms and the upper body, stay in a strong position. If it's easy, you can open the body up, you could even walk a bit closer, but to start with, just build time in this position, making sure you can exit back out. And then the last one, making sure that our core talks to the rest of the body and creates one segment when we need it to. So being able to hold in this hollow body position isn't just a cool ab exercise that switches everything on. Like the plank, it carries over to so many skills. So making sure that you can do this with the low back into the floor, hold head for time, and even take the arms above the head is going to be really good for you. To start with, we can bring it right back in. We can bring the head down onto the floor, making sure you can push the low back into the floor, and then I can just extend the legs away. I can add the arms in as well. And then over time, you can just lengthen and increase the time and make it even more of like a dish-like position. We just don't want extension and arch through the back. Now, I've already spoken about the time for the warm-up exercises to 30 to 60 seconds, depending on what level you're at. But when it comes to the strength exercises, that's a little bit different. And again, depends on your training experience and your conditioning at the moment. But I would be basing it on between 5 to 10 repetitions for 2 to 4 sets. Now, if you're very unconditioned, I'll be going on those higher end of the repetitions and the lower end of the sets. So that way the intensity should be quite low. We don't want to be going down to like 2 or 3 repetitions and ramping the intensity up. That's just asking for bad training techniques and potentially injury. So sticking with that sets and reps is going to be the best place, depending on your level. Now for these ones and these ones, we want to be looking around 30 to 60 seconds again for that 2 to 4 sets. Now you could do all this in one session, or you could split it between 2 sessions or 2 days and repeat it 2 to 3 times per week. The full program will be added to my app very shortly. If you're interested in that, link is down in the description. If you have any questions, feedback or requests, stick that down in the comments, and I'll speak to you in the next one.